Hello friends, this is kind of random and I'm making chocolate covered popcorn, and if you've never made it, you should. But I was just thinking about something today. Gus and Max are playing in the living room, but about conflict. And if you're anything like me, you don't love conflict, which I don't think most people love conflict. I could be wrong. I think there are some politicians out there and some podcast hosts that invite conflict, and I'm not saying conflict isn't necessary sometimes. But if someone has a problem with you, first you need to go to God and say, God, like, show me, is this problem valid? Do I have blind spots? I would go to a godly mentor and say, hey, this is from my perspective. I know there's two more perspectives, God's and the other person. And just like show me how I can do better, or, God, how can I resolve this? Because God does want resolution, especially between his children. But like maybe you've done that and it seems like somebody you're just not their cup of tea. And maybe they make it obvious that you're not their cup of tea sometimes. And side note, I think that's okay. I don't think we're gonna mesh with everybody that we come across in life. And that's okay too. Come to peace with that. But I have a godly friend who I consider a mentor, but she's so humble that she probably would be like, oh my gosh, no, I'm not your mentor. But she's kind of my friend that I go to just with stuff like that. And she always like turns the situation around and is like, well, what's the goal? What's your goal? And like, your goal in conflict with somebody should always be restoration to God, transformation of the heart. You obviously should want, as a believer, you should want God's best for them. And your goal shouldn't be to get your side of the story out. Your goal in talking to somebody else about it shouldn't be just, to vent, to feel better, to feel validated. But she always says our goal should be for that person to step into the truth of the Bible and the truth of who God says that they are. Because a lot of times, we hear this over and over again, hurt people that aren't happy with whatever's going on in them. Sometimes it's easier for them to pick on what's going on with you and what's going on with your life. And we just can't take it personal. You just have to run your race and live your life and do your best to follow the will of God for your life. And then at the same time, which isn't always easy, but to actually pray for them and pray for God's best for them. Pray that God would soften their heart towards you. Pray that they would just see the value in themselves, and that you, instead of being upset that you're not their cup of tea, or upset that they always seem to have a problem with you, pray for your heart that you would see them the way that God sees them, and that you would value them the way that God values them, and have compassion instead of just angst, I guess. When your heart clenches up around somebody. So I'm not perfect at this, and I've walked through it myself, and I walk through it still sometimes. And it's just like a daily choosing to do what the Holy Spirit would have you do instead of what your flesh might want to do, and elevate God and elevate thoughts on God above the situation. I know sometimes it's hard to not dwell on stuff, especially however closer, they're having a battle in there. However closer to like your personal world it is, it's hard to not dwell on it. But elevating your eyes to Jesus and worship above that. So yeah, I know that was a little bit of a ramble. If you made it this far, make yourself some chocolate popcorn.